Due to a strong fear of flying, Charlotte takes a train heading to her aunt's funeral. Soon, a mysterious gift arrives that changes everything. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Revealed Tales. Today, I will tell a new story. Let's begin. The train jolted, throwing Charlotte onto the worn seat. Her fingers tightly gripped a faded photograph, the only comfort against the growing nausea. Another jolt, another mile marker flashing past. Sleep was impossible. Flights had always scared her, but now everything had changed. When the news of her aunt's sudden death came, memories flooded back. Her loud laughter and the smell of fresh baking. It was unreal that she was gone. "Tickets, please." The voice pulled Charlotte out of her thoughts. She looked up and saw a middle-aged woman in a conductor's uniform. Charlotte blinked, trying to compose herself, and handed over the ticket. The conductor punched the ticket and moved on. But something in her eyes stayed in memory. There was an extraordinary kindness in their gaze, quite unlike the usual sternness of railway employees. In the usual hustle and bustle of city transport, her gaze fell again on the old photograph in her hands. The edges of the picture were curved. It showed her parents on their wedding day. Her father, handsome and carefree, smiled at the camera, resting his hand on her mother's shoulder. A familiar pain arose in her chest. Her father died in a car accident when she was little. She barely remembered him, only her mother's stories. Those stories were all she had left. Her mother did everything possible, but her father's side of the family remained a mystery. Suddenly, Charlotte's gaze focused on a woman in the aisle. The conductor. The conductor studied the photograph with unusual interest. "Excuse me," she said softly. "Is this your father in the photo? There is something about him that awakens a memory in me." Charlotte flinched in surprise. "Yes," she murmured, her voice full of wonder and fatigue. "He looks very much like someone I knew." The conductor continued with a hint of sadness in her voice. "It's funny how faces can be passed down from generation to generation." Charlotte couldn't help but ask. A sudden jolt ran through the train, signaling their approach to a station. The conductor promised, "I'll be back," with a lingering look at the photograph. The brief exchange haunted Charlotte's mind. Small talk with strangers was not her thing, especially with anxiety twisting in her stomach like a tight knot. Still, something about the woman felt different. As the train pulled away, Charlotte rearranged pieces of her memory, wondering if the conductor looked familiar. Maybe the conductor was from her aunt's town. Had her mom mentioned a friendly neighbor years ago? A text buzzed on her phone from her mom. The message read, "Everything okay, honey? Remember, you're stronger than you think." Charlotte took a deep breath and sent a quick thumbs-up emoji back. "My name is Evelyn," she said. "Evelyn Thompson," Charlotte replied. A simple introduction seemed unusually meaningful. Evelyn's smile was full of understanding and mystery. "So, Charlotte, what brought you here alone?" Evelyn asked. Was it worth explaining her phobia and the spontaneous decision to travel by train instead of flying? She wasn't sure if she believed it, but the support was comforting. The conductor returned with a tray holding 2 steaming mugs of tea. The conductor's smile was small but warm. "Calm your nerves," she said. Charlotte hesitated to accept anything from a stranger, but took the mug. Charlotte sipped the tea, its warmth easing some of the tightness in her chest. The conductor sat across from her, creating a quiet moment of connection. "My aunt died," Charlotte offered. "I'm going to the funeral." Evelyn nodded, her eyes filled with sympathy. "That's hard. Please accept my condolences." "Thank you," Charlotte muttered. It happened suddenly. She looked into the dark window, seeing the reflection of her anxious face. "Maybe you didn't know her as well as you'd have liked," Evelyn added gently. Charlotte was surprised at how easily the conductor understood her. "Yes," Charlotte admitted quietly, finally meeting Evelyn's gaze. "Honestly, I'm a little to blame for that." The conductor radiated genuine warmth. "Guilt is a heavy burden on such a trip," she said. "Perhaps this is a chance to learn about her, about your family." Charlotte pondered the words, surprised by the advice. "Probably," Charlotte muttered, hesitantly finishing her thought, trying to grasp the meaning of what was said. To even begin noticing her hesitation, Evelyn reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, worn notebook. Her best friend used to say, "Sometimes the stories that connect us are the ones we never knew we needed." "He was a true storyteller," Evelyn whispered, and a thoughtful expression flickered across her face. Charlotte felt a spark of shared connection. Charlotte remembered her habit of holding on to a faded photograph and her mother's stories. It reflected what the guide had described. Evelyn placed the notebook on the small table between them and said, "Tell me about the person in your photograph. Let's start piecing together your story." Charlotte began to speak. Her voice was timid. At first, she described a happy wedding photo. Young, carefree parents. She talked about the father's smile, the mischievous sparkle in his eyes, how he radiated vibrant energy. Then she told Evelyn about the car accident and how everything changed after his death. Evelyn listened, not taking her eyes off Charlotte's face, as if absorbing not only the words, but also the hidden emotions. The rhythmic clatter of the train became a soothing background as Charlotte continued to speak. The tightness in her chest gradually eased with each story told. The conversation was no longer with a stranger, but with someone who understood unspoken connections. Finally, Charlotte finished recounting her sparse memories of her father. She was filled with familiar feelings of sadness and longing. She took a sip of tea, preparing for the impending silence and the return of anxiety. But instead, Evelyn placed a gentle hand on hers. "Do you remember where your father grew up?" Evelyn asked, catching Charlotte off guard. "Probably somewhere around there," Charlotte replied. "My mother seems to have mentioned it once." "And your aunt," Evelyn offered a hint, "lived in the same neighborhood." Excitement mixed with confusion in Charlotte. "Yes, I am going to a funeral," she said. Evelyn smiled, the warmth in her eyes growing. "Before leaving, your father gave me something. It had a spark, kindness, and I see the same light in you," she said. "He said to open it only if someone appeared who reminded him," Evelyn finished, holding a small object. A tear rolled down Charlotte's cheek. Her eyes widened, her mind spinning, trying to grasp the meaning of what had happened. He left something important. It seemed like pieces of memories were starting to form a clear picture. "Is there any chance?" Charlotte asked hesitantly, her heart beating with sudden hope. Evelyn held back a sob. "It's like seeing him again," she whispered, not taking her eyes off Charlotte. Charlotte's mind raced, unable to believe the reality of what was happening. Her father was a dear friend of this woman. The faded photograph in her hands was no longer just a distant memory. It was a connection to a past she never knew. You knew him?" Charlotte whispered, barely audibly. Evelyn's smile was bittersweet. "Tommy. We called him Tommy. He was the brightest and bravest person I have ever met. We were inseparable then." Evelyn's voice trembled with nostalgia. Charlotte's hands trembled slightly as Evelyn took a tarnished silver locket from her pocket. Evelyn carefully placed the locket in Charlotte's hand. "I never opened it. It felt wrong. But I think now it's for you, the part of him he wanted to pass on," Evelyn said, her eyes full of meaning. Even if he couldn't do it himself, Charlotte's fingers gently traced the delicate engraving on the locket. There were words, "Spread your wings," carved into the smooth silver. "He never told me what was inside," Evelyn whispered, a smile playing on her lips. "We were young, full of grand plans and silly quarrels. He left before we could fix everything. I never married or had children, but looking at you, it feels like a part of him has returned." Charlotte carefully opened the locket. Inside was a small, intricately carved figure of a bird in flight. A swallow with outstretched wings. "Swallow," Charlotte murmured, a feeling of recognition igniting within her. "My mother told me stories about the wooden swallow he made for her." Evelyn nodded, her eyes filling with tears. "Tommy was always so talented. That swallow was a promise of return. As silly as it sounds, he carried the same swallow with him." Charlotte clenched the locket in her hand. It was not just about her aunt's funeral. It was about her father, who was no longer just a ghost in old photographs, but a real man with a past and a heart. "Thank you," Charlotte whispered to Evelyn, feeling gratitude and a new connection to the father she barely knew. The whistle of the train cut through the air, announcing the aunt's arrival in the city. The funeral was modest and somber, among distant cousins and family friends. Charlotte no longer felt like a stranger after the warm words and apologies for her mother's absence. The phone rang, a message from her mother. Mom was recovering and waiting for news. The decision was difficult and meant missing Evelyn's warm smile. Charlotte caught a taxi, leaving the destination unspoken. Station or airport, the choice was hers. The bitter truth was clear. Hardships brought her here, but her father's spirit, the locket in her heart, pushed her forward. She will definitely spread her wings, one way or another. If you enjoyed this story, like and subscribe to the channel for new tales. This story made you feel something in one word in the comments. While you're here, watch the video currently on the screen. Until next time.